So now we're going to add our share buttons, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this. There's a lot of different packages and services. We're going to use a component or a package called React Share, and this allows us to put all these different buttons with all these different social media services on our page so we can share it. All right, and these are all the things that are available, and not only social media, but you can also have an email button, things like that. So the way we can use it is we bring in the service and the button. And there's also an icon we can bring in, and then we basically just, put that wherever we want, like this. And there's different options you can pass in. And what's cool is, like, for, let's say it's a Facebook post, you can actually use like the title of the property for the title of the post, which is cool. So yeah, that's what we'll be using. It's very easy to use. So let's go to our terminal and install it. So it's going to be npm install and then react-share. And then we're going to open up let's see, we already have our share button component, right? Yeah, share buttons. So we're going to open that up, and then we're going to bring in, we don't need this icon anymore because we're not going to have just a single button. So we can get rid of that. Then let's import the things that we want from, and it's going to be from React-share. Okay, and there's going to be quite a bit. So basically what I want to do, and you can add other services if you want, but I'm going to have Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and email. And if, like I said, if you want to do other things, you can. So for each of those, we need to bring in the button and the icon. So let's start off with the buttons. I'm going to say Facebook share button. Then we want the Twitter share button, and then the WhatsApp share button, and the email share button. Then we want the icons, so Facebook icon, Twitter icon, WhatsApp icon, and email icon. And like I said, you bring in other stuff if you want. And this is actually going to be a server rendered component because we don't need to use any kind of hooks or anything like that. Now, share buttons takes in the property. And what I'm going to do is create above the return, I'm going to create the URL that we want to share. So let's say const share URL, and we're going to set that to some backticks. And in here, let's do process.env. and then next underscore public underscore domain, and then outside of the curly brace slash properties, and then we want the ID. So here, property dot underscore ID. Now we're going to come down to the return, and we no longer want this button. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm just going to put in a fragment. And then inside here, let's have an H3, and I'm going to do text dash XL, font bold, and text dash center, and let's do padding top 2, and this H3 I'm just going to say share this property, colon. And then underneath that we'll have a flex box, so let's say class flex, gap 3, justify center, and padding bottom dash 5. So this is where I'm going to put all the buttons. So basically it's going to be a button, an icon wrapped in the button. So let's do Facebook first. So we'll say Facebook button, or sorry, share button, Facebook share button, and we want to pass in a bunch of stuff into this Facebook share button component, such as the URL, which is going to be our share URL. And then for different services, there's different props. Facebook has a quote that we can pass in, and for the quote, we're going to use the property.name. And then you can also add a hashtag. So for the hashtag, I'm going to set this to some curly braces, and then in some backticks, I'm going to put the number sign or the hashtag, and then I want the property type. So we'll say property dot type, which will be like condo or apartment or whatever. And then outside of the curly brace, I'm going to say for rent, like that, so that it'll be like hash condo for rent or apartment for rent. All right. And then inside the share icon tags is where we want to put the, or share button tags is where we want to put the icon. So let's say Facebook icon, which takes in a size. So I'm going to say size equals 40, which will be 40 width and height. And then round, I'm going to set that to true. And you can look at the documentation for all the different options. So if I save that, now we have a Facebook thing. Now if I click it, you do have to log in, but I believe it has to be a live website for this to actually work. So it might not work on your local host, but as soon as you deploy and this is your actual domain, then it should work. And I only had that issue with Facebook. Twitter and stuff like that did work. So just try each service out. So now I'm going to copy that Facebook button and icon, and then I'm going to change it to Twitter. So let's just grab this and this and this, change that to Twitter. So Twitter share button, we have the URL. Now instead of quote, Twitter has a title, which I'm going to keep at the property name, and then it takes a hashtags array instead. So what we can do is just take this and cut it and then put in an array and then have that in there. And you can put other tags if you want as well. And then for the size and round, we'll keep that as true. So if we save that, now we have Twitter. And see, it has the title, Rustic Cabin in the Woods, has the URL, and then has a hashtag. Well, it looks like we have two of them. And then cabbage, cabin or, oh, Jesus, I can't talk. Cabin or cottage for rent. Now there is a space here which looks a little weird, so you could get rid of that because that looks kind of strange. So for the property type, what we can do is use dot replace and replace it, and we can add a regular expression in here. So to replace a space, we're going to do inside the forward slashes \s and then G, and then we'll pass in what we want to replace it with, which is nothing, just an empty string. So now, and apparently it adds the hashtag itself, so we can get rid of that number sign as well. So now if I try, yep, so now we just have hash cabin or cottage for rent. All right, so that's Twitter. Now let's do WhatsApp. So I'm going to just copy, and we could do that replace on, we could do this on all of them. This right here for all the property types. So we'll just put that in there as well. And then let's copy that. And let's change this Twitter, this one and this one to WhatsApp icon and share button. And this one takes in the URL, takes in the title, and also a separator. I don't believe there's a hashtag one, so we can do separator, and we're going to use double colon and a space. And then for the icon, we'll keep that. All right, so I don't have WhatsApp installed, so it doesn't show, doesn't really show it correctly, but I mean, that's fine. You can test it out. You can get rid of that and use something else if it doesn't work or whatever. I think email is an important one, so we're going to add that next. So let's change this to email. And that takes in URL, and then the subject. So the subject, which will be the property name, and then a body. Body, we'll set that to, some some backticks, and we'll say check out this property listing, and then we'll put in the share URL. And now we should have an email icon. And there it is. So it has the title and the subject, and then check out this property listing, and it has the URL. All right, cool. And again, if you want to try some other stuff, you can, but I think that's all I'm going to do as far as the share buttons go. All right, so that brings us to the end of this section. We've added the map, we've added the bookmarks and saved properties, as well as the share icons. So in the next section, I want to work on the property search on the home page, so that basically the hero search, and we're also going to add a search form to the properties page as well.